Hello, these are artificial intelligence-generated voices, but the words read were created solely by humans using artificial intelligence for some of the writing, as well as Microsoft's Clipchamp to generate the voices and the podcast recordings.
Welcome back to the Prep for the Kids podcast. On these episodes, Pat Frost, Vice Chair of the National Pediatric Disaster Coalition, and I will be exploring the critical components of emergency management that keep our communities and especially our children safe. Today, we're focusing on Emergency Support Function Number 3, Public Works and Engineering. This ESF is responsible for restoring and maintaining essential services like water, transportation, and public buildings after a disaster. But a critical aspect of this function often doesn't get enough attention: how we plan for and protect our most vulnerable population, our children, especially in the sites they are found daily. Those are childcare facilities, group homes, domestic violence shelters, schools, hospitals, and even homeless shelters. Hello again, Pat. Welcome back to another podcast episode.
Great to be back, Mike. When most people hear about ESF number 3, Public Works and Engineering, visions of roads, bridges, and utilities are the first things that pop into most emergency managers' minds. However, we must remember that places like hospitals, schools, shelters, and childcare centers are also essential to the critical infrastructure that children and their families rely on for their everyday well-being and routines. Children's lives are significantly disrupted if these settings are not adequately considered in ESF 3 planning and response. Imagine a school that's unsafe to reopen after a disaster or a shelter that's not equipped to handle families with young children. These oversights can lead to extended displacements, missed education, and even emotional trauma for kids.
That's a powerful reminder. Could you give some examples of how these disruptions play out, especially across the disaster continuum?
Certainly. During the response phase, school facilities are likely to be used as congregate shelters, disrupting the school's everyday operations, including programs like after-school childcare. There needs to be a balance struck between the immediate life safety needs for sheltering and the systemic needs for education and childcare. Another example is the number of hospitals, including children's hospitals, that are still struggling to meet seismic safety compliance requirements established in 2008, requiring that facilities can support at least 72 hours of operation after an earthquake. One of the most vulnerable sectors needing more attention is childcare facilities, including daycare and pre-kindergarten. Over 11 million children under age 5 spend 35 hours a week in childcare facilities across the U.S. The Administration for Families and Children Office of Human Services Emergency Preparedness and Response recognizes keeping childcare facilities staffed and physically operational as essential. The impact can be even more profound during the recovery phase. Schools and childcare facilities that remain closed due to structural damage or inadequate planning force children to miss out on critical education and reassuring social routines that protect children's well-being. In addition, more than 28 million children participate in school lunch programs, and parents cannot return to work without a safe place to leave their children, hindering economic recovery.
Welcome back. It's clear that when these facilities aren't prioritized in ESF 3, the ripple effects on children and their families can be long-lasting. How do these issues and problems extend into the recovery phase?
In the recovery phase of a disaster, focusing on rebuilding infrastructure and getting services back online is essential. But if we don't prioritize schools and childcare centers as part of that critical infrastructure, children and their communities are known to suffer long-term consequences. For example, if a school is severely damaged and not quickly repaired or replaced, students may be displaced for months or years, leading to significant educational disruptions. Similarly, if childcare facilities are overlooked, it forces parents to make difficult decisions, such as leaving the workforce or relying on unsafe childcare options. This disruption can lead to a cycle in which children fall behind academically and families struggle to regain their footing economically and socially. Disasters take a terrible toll on family dynamics, and there is evidence that children experience abuse, which increases when families lack adequate food and shelter. Critical infrastructure also includes systems for reporting and investigating child abuse, which can be disrupted by the disaster. And if those governmental groups are not part of the infrastructure restoration prioritization, then children will suffer as well. These are the cascading consequences seen in disasters. That's why it is essential to ensure that these settings and sites are not just an afterthought, but a core component of our public works and recovery planning.
So, while public works and engineering focus on physical infrastructure, there's an equally important need to consider the human element, especially for children.
Exactly. Prioritizing schools and childcare facilities as part of critical infrastructure is essential for the safety, security, and emotional well-being of both children and their families during disasters. That's why our social media campaign will focus on raising awareness about the importance of child-centered emergency planning in these spaces. We want to ensure that every child is protected and that these essential facilities are prepared for disaster.
Thanks for bringing this crucial issue to light. Be sure to follow our social media channels for more insights and tips on how you can help ensure that the places children rely on are safe and prepared. Stay safe and remember, preparedness is everyone's responsibility. Next up is ESF number 4, firefighting. Please remember to use the hashtag #PrepForTheKids, when sending out these visual posts or other related social media posts. Thanks for listening and helping keep all our children safe before, during, and after disasters.
Please visit us on the web at npdcoalition.org. Our vision is to support the development of a unified medical and health emergency management community to prepare, respond, and recover from emergencies and disasters.